All right, we're jumping into the final chapter of the book of Numbers. Now, I know what you might be thinking. Another chapter about ancient laws, but trust me, this isn't just a dry legal text. It's actually a high-stakes family drama, a story about land, legacy, and a tiny loophole that almost unraveled an entire tribe's future.
It's a problem that's pretty timeless, right? You make a rule with the best intentions, but it ends up causing a totally unforeseen problem. Well, that's exactly what happened here. A really important decision, one that was meant to protect 5 orphan daughters, accidentally created a crisis that could have fractured the 12 tribes. So let's dig in and see how they figured this one out.
So, to set the scene, our story opens on the plains of Moab. The Israelites are right on the edge of entering the Promised Land. You can feel the tension, the excitement, but there's a problem brewing. A family's entire inheritance, and with it, their tribe's future, is hanging by a thread.
Okay, verse 1. The story kicks off with a group of very serious, very respected clan leaders from the tribe of Manasseh. Just picture it. These are the chief fathers, and you can almost see their faces, etched with worry, as they stride right through the camp. They're on a mission, and they need an urgent audience with Moses.
So in verse 2, they get in front of Moses. And they're not coming in hot and angry. They're deeply concerned. They start by reminding him of a landmark ruling he'd already made. You might remember this one. It was a huge victory for justice, where 5 young women, the daughters of Zelophehad, were actually granted the right to inherit their father's land. But they explain that very victory has now created a new and really dangerous problem.
And here, in verse 3, they get to the heart of the matter. Imagine you're looking at a map of the land that's about to be divided up. There's a piece of land clearly marked Zelophehad, tribe of Manasseh. But, and this is the big but, if one of his daughters marries a guy from, say, the tribe of Judah, her inheritance, that piece of land, would be taken from Manasseh and just absorbed into Judah's territory. This is the absolute nightmare scenario they're laying out for Moses.
Now, verse 4 explains what makes this so permanent. See, the Jubilee year was supposed to be this great reset button. Every 50 years, any land that had been sold would automatically go back to its original family. But this was a loophole. Land that was transferred because of a marriage, well, it wouldn't go back. It would be locked into the new tribe forever, permanently shrinking their ancestral homeland.
So the leaders have made their case, and the tension is palpable. What is Moses going to do? Well, this next part is the turning point of the whole story. It's where a divine ruling comes down that provides a solution that is just brilliantly balanced between individual rights and the stability of the entire community.
In verse 5, just imagine Moses listening so intently. You can see the weight of this decision on his shoulders. He doesn't brush them off. Instead, after he consults God, he turns to everyone and declares, "What the tribe of the sons of Joseph speaks is right." You can just feel the collective sigh of relief from those leaders. They've been heard. They've been validated.
And the solution that comes in verse 6 is it's genius. Picture a set of scales. On one side, you have a heart. That represents the daughter's freedom to marry whoever they think is best. On the other side, you have a boundary marker. The ruling is simple. They have freedom of choice, absolutely, but that choice has to be made within the family of their father's tribe.
Verse 7 gives us the why behind it all, the fundamental principle. Think back to that map of the 12 tribes. Instead of land just floating away from one tribe to another, this law draws strong, permanent borders around each territory. It's a blueprint for stability. It ensures that the very identity of each tribe, which is tied directly to its ancestral land, will be preserved for generations to come.
So then, as we see in verses 8 and 9, this specific solution gets expanded into a universal law. It's not just about Zelophehad's daughters anymore. From now on, this applies to every daughter in Israel who inherits land. It's a new legal precedent that protects every single tribe, making sure this kind of problem can never threaten their stability again.
The law has been handed down, but, a law is only as good as its application, right? So let's get to the final act of our story and see how this all plays out. It's a really satisfying conclusion that secures the future for everyone.
So, the big question, did the daughters actually comply? Verses 10 and 11 tell us, yes, absolutely. And I love that the text reminds us these are real people at the center of this drama by naming them Mahlah, Tirzah, Hoglah, Milcah, and Noah. When they hear the ruling, they make their choice. They marry within their own clan. Specifically, they marry their cousins, and they fulfill the command perfectly.
And the result, in verse 12, is just a beautiful resolution. You can think of it like a family tree.
Instead of a branch breaking off and being grafted onto a totally different tree, new branches just form within, making the original tree that much stronger. Their inheritance remains securely within their father's tribe, Manasseh. Problem solved.
The story wraps up in verse 13 by pulling the camera way back, giving us this wide, cinematic shot. We see the entire nation of Israel camped out on the plains of Moab. You can see the Jordan River flowing nearby, and right across from it, the city of Jericho. It just grounds the whole story, reminding us this wasn't some abstract legal debate. It was a real solution for real people at a very specific and crucial moment in their history. So in the end, a crisis was totally averted, a dangerous loophole was closed, and a family's legacy was secured. This whole ancient story was about preserving a family's name and their property. And it kind of makes you wonder, doesn't it? How do those same deep-seated concerns about inheritance, about fairness, and about what we pass on, how do they still shape our own laws, our families, and our lives today?